think you need to be a genius to learn plants. You don't. I'm going to give you a bunch of resources that can help you on your way to do that. Mostly my resources are for New England, but you can take the information I give you and apply it across any region in North America. All right, so you want to be a better botanist, learn more about plants? Here's some books you're going to need. All right, so today we're going to be talking about botanical resources, things that you can get that can help you to better know what you're seeing when you're out in the woods. And plants are the basis of everything. It may seem like it's really hard to learn plants initially, but there's a bunch of resources that you can find that can help you look at these plants and figure out what they are. And then you learn more and more about natural communities, connections between plants and insects, all types of things. So plants is a great thing to get into. If you're an amateur or you're just interested in sort of learning more about that, these are a bunch of different levels of information and things that you can use. And these books are things that I use as references. However, a lot of this stuff is on the internet and the computer, and you can find it that way. I like to have a hard copy because I take it out into the woods with me if I don't have service. And so we'll start at the beginning. One of the, and preferencing all of this, preferencing all of this with, I'm from New England, so all of these books generally are for New England, but these methods, and there are probably similar books to the ones that I'm going to show you for New England that exist in other parts of the country. For instance, I have a Plants of Pennsylvania book that I got because of the proximity to New England. I want to be able to key out plants that potentially show up in New England from Pennsylvania or a neighboring state, something like that. So it helps me to have those keys because plants that are in New England also occur in Pennsylvania for the most part. So you can see where they break out in a key, a dichotomous key. So one of the first things you should get, this is a plant terminology book, and you can find this probably on Amazon. I think there's another one that goes with it, but on the inside of this, it has all kinds of line drawings and information about plant parts, all kinds of things that you're going to find in a dichotomous key, which I'll show you later, which can be complicated, and there's a lot of terminology in there. And don't feel like as a botanist that, or somebody who's trying to learn more about plants that you should know all these terms. There are plenty of terms that I have no idea what they mean, and I have to look them up on a daily basis. So don't feel bad about that. This is the plant identification terminology book here. It's basically like a dictionary just for plant terms. At the bottom of the, when you first start out doing plant identification, this is a great book to get for New England. It has line drawings in it as well. So one thing you want to look at when you get a plant ID book is usually they come in two different forms. One will have line drawings like this, and the other one will have pictures usually. So for example, here's one with pictures. Now the problem with this is that pictures represent one individual plant. So if you're trying to ID a plant, the species that you're looking at might not necessarily look exactly like this. And so the benefit of having line drawings that show up in something like this book is that these line drawings are drawn by somebody, but they took into account the average of all of the measurements for this particular feature that they're showing you. So, and they're also showing you that usually there's like a little marcation here that says like double size or half size, something like that. And so this is going to be a more accurate depiction, even though it's not in color and you can't see any of that shading or anything. This is a better place to start in order to ID a plant because those photos represent one individual. It'd be like taking one human and saying, here's the definition of a human, but all humans look different. So, it would make you question whether or not that was actually a human. When you're looking at this, you can tell that the average of these is going to be a lot easier to get to a point where you can say this is definitely that species or not. So Newcomb's Wildflower Guide, another good book. This one's very old. I've had this one for a long time, but I stopped using this because I got to a point where the species I was looking at weren't included in this. So this does not have every plant in New England. It has like a highlighted section for each plant. So there's probably like maybe 500 in here, something like that. So the probability that you would be coming across a plant that you can't key with this book because you can't find it in here is very real and very possible. So the next level up from that is this book here, and this is the Flora for New England. So if you're trying to ID plants in the woods, this is basically the dictionary for the woods when you go out there and you're looking at plants. Now, this has very few line drawings in it, and it's a lot of text. So basically what this does is it takes all of the plants in their families and the genus that they're in and breaks it down sort of like a if not then this, if this then this, so you go down through the categories and it'll have like 2A and 2B. You read what the description of those species identifiers are, and then you say like, I'm going to choose 1A, and 1A will take you to a particular the next breakdown, and then eventually you get to down far enough in the tree where you get to a species, and then you can say I identified this as this species. So this is a great book to get. This does have all the species in it. It's a little out of date. It's from 2014, so 10 years out of date. So some of the terminology in here or the species names are going to be have changed since then. So you want to always just have that in the back of your mind that plants potentially could be named something else previously, and so you just want to be aware of that. Up until 2014, it has the synonyms referenced in here, so you can at least see what genera or family it was in before, and then you can look on the internet to see where it is now. iNaturalist is actually a really up-to-date app for that, but we'll talk about that in a second. So Flora Nova Anglae, I use all the time. There's also an online digital version, and that is really useful to be able to use in the woods when you're out there if you have service. If you don't, it's helpful to have the hard copy with you. Now this book, this is a special book. This is the Gleason and Cronquist illustrated companion to basically their old Flora. So before this one got written, the Flora Gleason and Cronquist, which is for the whole eastern seaboard, was the Flora for New England, and that was from like the 60s. So it was way out of date, hard to use. I like this new one a lot better. I hope they update it soon. But this was the illustrated companion to that because the old 60s Flora did not have any line drawings in it at all. It was just text. And so you had to have this book to go with it. Now, even though that one's from the 60s, I appreciate the line drawings that are in this because there's so many of them and they show really important parts for each plant. So if I ever want to be able to key anything out, and I want to look and see what the difference is between one species or another, this has pretty much line drawings for every part of every plant in it. I've had this for a long time. These are kind of expensive if you can find them. They are on Amazon, I think, maybe you can get one. But this is a great thing to have in your botanical library just because of like, look at the carex drawings in here. They're just like amazing. They show you the perigynia, what it looks like, all kinds of stuff like that, the growth form. So there's a lot of good information in this. I use this one a lot, especially when I'm trying to key out plants at home. So those are all, big, generalized, combined aggregate floras. There are also really specialized resources that you can get. This is the Field Guide to New England, and this is just for carex. So just one genera. Now in New England, we have among the highest biodiversity for carex. So it makes sense that we have our own individual sort of flora for that species. This key is different than the key in the bigger Flora Nova Anglae book that I showed you because it was written by a different person. So it's different than the carex key in this. And I like to use them to compare to each other in case I'm looking at a species that I might not be quite sure what I'm looking at. I want to like try to key it out in a different way. I'll go down the path in this one and see if I can get to the same species. And so that's a good cross-referencing, approach to finding out what species you're actually looking at. Now this one I like a lot. It's free actually. So if you go over to New England Botanical Society, they have a PDF on their website for this. I just saved the PDF and then had it printed at Staples. It maybe cost me like $30, but all the information is in here for free, which is great. And you can make it into a bound thing that you can take out into the woods with you just to key out carex or do it at home. But this is another one that has really good line drawings in it. So here's a bunch of perigynia for a bunch of different carex species and what they look like. The angle of this is going to matter. The lines in this, the veins running down, whether they're on the top or the bottom, all of that stuff is really important. So that's a specialized, and I don't know that there's any others, but that one, I had to get it when I knew that it came out because it was Flora carex, which is really awesome. And we have like 170 species in New England, so it's a pretty decently sized book, and it's fun to go through and try to key out things with this. Here's a whole other series of sort of books that I have in my library. This is Grasses, Sedges, and Rushes. This was also put up by New England Wildflower Society or Native Plant Trust. So this one has line drawings and photos, and it doesn't have all of the species in here. These are like the most common ones that you might find in different places. But again, another good cross-referenced material here. Other things that are out there, this is like a map you can sort of fold out, and it has all of the sedges on it for the northeastern forest. So a lot of cool, these are actually pictures, so you get to see what the actual Perigynia looks like up close compared to everything else. So it's kind of cool looking. This might be something you could like frame and put on your wall if you had like an office or something. And so that's like something you can take into the woods with you. This is like the book version of that. So also lots of photos with carex, different differentiations in it. See a lot of things in here. This is another cool book to get. And invasive plants. So this is my favorite invasive plant manual. The reason why I like this, I'm not using this to ID plants necessarily, but it gives me a lot of information about how something came to a different place. So it's got habitat and range, what it does to the ecosystem, identifying characteristics, management strategies, and how it came to North America. So you can look up a bunch of different invasive species in this. This is for all of North America, so it's not just New England, but you can read about how to manage these species, and there's a bunch of references in here too, which are really good just to like verify that what you think about something based on this is really true. And then here's another Plants of Pennsylvania book. I got this just because it's sort of a different kind of key, and it has plants in it that are right on maybe the northern range here, or maybe have not been recorded in New England before. And so I'm looking for those when I'm out in the woods, and I want to be able to key them out if I need to. And so I got this just as a reference to compare plants that are a little bit further west or south of me, but also have the potential to occur in New England. And apps are the other thing. So iNaturalist is really good. You're not going to be able to key out a plant necessarily with that. That's really like you key them out with all of these references that I've shown you, and then you go into iNaturalist and you say, this is the species because of this. There's comment fields in there for that. And so, and two apps, if you live further south than New England, there is Flora is an app that is great to download. They're like 20 bucks a piece. There's one for the Carolinas and the Carolinas, but they have a lot of good keys in there. They work without service, and there's a lot of good information in there. And I actually use those keys sometimes. There's one for the northern tier, which goes up to New York, and I use that one when I'm sort of on the border somewhere, and I can see if potential species show up, similar to like why I would use this Flora Pennsylvania book. And that's to say, you could look at these books all day long and read through them and see what different plants are in your region, which is great. But the easiest way to learn about plants is to get out there every day and actually see them in the woods and ID them and learn what they look like and get the search image in your head. Because when you go out into the woods, after you learn certain plants, you can sort of delete what you know from the landscape and start looking for the things you don't know. And that's when you'll start seeing rare plants, things you've never seen before, really interesting things. And just as a note, if you ever do find rare plants, make sure that you're reporting those to the state wherever you live so that they can get those on their books for management. Potentially reach out to the landowner, get them to protect those plants in some way because they are rare or endangered. So that's just a note. But you will learn more by going out into the woods every day than you ever will from books. So make sure that you spend as much time out in the forest, and it doesn't have to be a massive forest. It could be just going out into your backyard or a neighborhood trail around your house. Go out there frequently and you will see new plants every time you go out there. So thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe. It's going to help me get more of these videos out to you all, especially as the growing season's coming up. So I appreciate you, and Thanks for joining Only Plants.